Ooh. And the candles have been lit. Well, from finishing Ellia's chapter, we know what to do here. Let's extinguish the middle and... try that again. Extinguish the middle and the far right. And looky what's in here. With the correct sequence of candles being lit, a hidden panel opens. There is a message tube inside. And we found the message tube. Let's check it out. An antique leather-bound message tube, the kind used to transport sealed message scrolls. It appears to be unopened. There might be something inside. So let's open it up. Alright, Alex has found a chapter page entitled Suspicions of Conspiracy. Oh, okay. We're about to get introduced to the first ancient.
Your presence is welcomed, Majesty. As always, I am honored.
Our dealings are a pleasure to us both, then.
He lies.
As do we all.
What is this flaw you wish to discuss with us?
My concern is with the other ancients. Oublié, Chattur'gha. Should they unite with Mantorok, they will doubtlessly possess enough power to vanquish even thee.
As darkness abhors light, and light abhors dark, the others will not, cannot join forces.
Mantorok will be bound, and the others will sink into insanity when I return.
As has been foretold.
I was unaware.
There is much you do not know.
And much you never will.
Be certain to retrieve Mantorok's essence. It is necessary to cement our place in your world.
Then what of Charlemagne the Frank? What do you intend for him?
The Frank is an instrument of light. He seeks to unite Europe under his banner.
With this in place, my guardians will be hard-pressed to perform the functions you require.
For your own schemes, Pious. Think of your future.
Then Charlemagne will be removed from the picture.
Make sure he is dead. Or insane.
Or perhaps one, then the other? Just make sure he is removed from power.
Of course. He is as good as dead. Your presence is long missed, my liege. I feel that my power is weakening from your absence.
Yes. Your power flows from me. Without me, you are nothing.
My meditations reveal a flaw in our plan.
There is no flaw. Mantorok and the others move too slowly to counter our preparations. Once Mantorok is bound, its death will be prolonged for 1,000 years. Its fate will assure that the balance of power over the opposing ancients will remain in our favor. And with the Keeper nullified, my power grows stronger still.
And what of its essence?
Mantorok has employed others to defend it. It is of no matter, for the power I will wield upon my return will crush all that oppose me. Enough of this. What of this Charlemagne the Frank? Is he still a concern?
His undoing has been planned in intricate detail. Those most loyal to him will be instrumental in his death. Nothing short of a miracle will keep him alive. And there hasn't been one of those for a long time.
Tear apart Rick.
Thy presence is long missed, my liege.
The universe is a yawning chasm, filled with emptiness and the puerile meanderings of sentience. Why should you deserve special consideration within it, Augustus, above all else?
I am your servant, my lord. As always, that and nothing more.
Yes, that and nothing more. What revelations do you bring me?
My meditations reveal a flaw in our plan.
Our plan, Augustus? Mantorok is a shadow ebbing in the light of our glory. It and the others are slow, weak, bound by the realm of the universe. Unable to unite to fight a common foe, they will fall one by one. Unfortunately, this is beyond your understanding. The binding of Mantorok will seal their fate as its power over us is diminished. Such an irony that the Keeper itself be imprisoned within the walls of its own magic.
But what of its essence? Is that not the core of its remaining power?
Upon my seeping into the corporeal world, I will be the dominant over all, Mantorok included. Your worries are unfounded. You must turn your attention to Charlemagne the Frank. His continued presence within the world is far more serious to our cause.
As you wish, Master. He will be dead before the week is out.
Alright, after the chapter page is removed, the message tube is no longer needed. Alex discards it. So that was our first meeting with Xel'lotath. And like earlier in the game, when we had the choice between choosing her artifact, Oublié's artifact, or Chattur'gha's artifact, that cutscene will change depending on which artifact we have. And what I'll do is I'll splice in the other dialogues that Pious has with his different ancient right there. But you may have noticed that Xel'lotath was speaking in two different voices. Well, those two different voices are Jennifer Hale and Kim My Guest, who were taking turns providing the voice for that ancient. Now, if you've seen the other scenes, Oublié is actually voiced by Richard Doyle, who is Pious Augustus. And even though we haven't met the character that this person voices, Chattur'gha is voiced by Greg Eagles. I'll speak more about him later. Right now we're going to take a look at the suspicions of conspiracy. This appears to be a page from the Tome of Eternal Darkness. It is entitled Suspicions of Conspiracy. Use this item to read the chapter. Now, if I wanted to, we could go and explore more of the mansion with Alex, but we're not at a point where we need to do that. But one thing I would like to point out is that we can now see Alex's sanity meter, and her sanity meter is going to go down as we read more and more of the Tome of Eternal Darkness.
From my research, it is apparent that the endeavors of mankind are mere puppetry at the hands of the ancients. Whenever a king vows reform, the ancients move quickly to stifle it. Under the auspices of Emperor Charlemagne the Frank, the new Holy Roman Empire was at the height of its power.
Alright, Amiens, France, 1814 AD. So this is actually a few hundred years before what happened with Ellia.
Hanc mit ad dominum et imperatorum nostrum, Carolum magnum Francum.
Deliver this to our Lord and Emperor Charlemagne the Frank. No one but him must see it. They are words for his eyes only. At once.
What sorcery is this? A spell? I am bewitched. If this was meant for Charlemagne, then what will become of him? I have to warn him of this treachery.
Alright, so we are now in control of Anthony. Anthony has some NPCs he can actually interact with, so let's talk to this one. After Anthony briefly describes his mission, the monk informs him that Charlemagne was last seen in audience with the bishop in the visiting chamber, which is over here. Muffled voices emanate from inside the bishop's visiting chamber. However, the door is locked, and Anthony will need the bishop's key to enter and gain audience with Charlemagne. So before we get much further into this, I would like to let you know about Anthony. Anthony is voiced by Cam Clark. Now, I cannot possibly do Cam Clark justice in explaining his voice work career. He has been voice acting since the 80s at the very least, and is tremendously prolific. You can find him in cartoons and video games and voice over work all over the place. But some really memorable roles that I would like to mention for him is, of course, Leonardo and Rocksteady from the original Teenage Ninja Turtles cartoon. And something that I was not aware of until very recently is that he provided the voice of Kaneda in the original English dub of Akira. And since we've already met so many characters from Metal Gear Solid, well, Cam Clark provides the voice for Liquid Snake and Master Miller in Metal Gear. Alright, Anthony's presence is questioned by the monks, feeling that he has trespassed upon sacred ground. The monk seems rather subdued, perhaps out of respect, or perhaps out of fear. Alright, we've talked to you already. Visibly disturbed with grief and despair, the monk sobs pitifully. He recounts that this is not the only death that has to have occurred recently, and wonders if perhaps the order is being punished for a wavering in faith. The monk informs Anthony that the order is awaiting the arrival of the bishop, so the funeral rites may begin. There is much grieving to do, since this is not the only recent death among the order. The monk cordially greets Anthony, however he brings grave news of the loss of one of his order, who fell from the tower to his death. His tone is guarded, leaving Anthony wondering if, indeed, this is true. So let me tell you, the very first time I played this, I just ran up to this coffin and examined it. Just checking out everything. Well, you apparently have to examine this casket here to progress the game. We're not going to do that yet. I want to look around a little bit more beforehand. There is this door. Anthony cannot leave yet. Charlemagne must be warned of the conspiracy against him. Ooh, what's this? So Anthony has been transported to another realm. And there are some statues here. This one reads Ellia, and it's shaped like her. But what's this one behind us? Well, this one says Pious Augustus, and it is damaged in the same way that he damaged the statue himself during his chapter. Now remember, if the numbers I read were right, this chapter is taking place a few hundred years before Ellia would have her encounter with Mantorok. And the floor is made up of countless screaming faces. And there's the Tome of Eternal Darkness. Cradled in what appears to be a leathery hand lies a mysterious book. It is bound in human skin and intricately decorated with shrunken bones. It beckons and yearns to be possessed. Should Anthony claim the Tome of Eternal Darkness? Well, yes, he has to take it. If he doesn't take it, the game doesn't progress. And Anthony has visions of what has happened and what will happen. Alright, I've I don't think I've ever been up here before opening the casket, so this is all new to me. The monk is hard at work and does not want to be disturbed. Somewhat aided by Anthony's distraction, the monk kindly requests to be left alone. There's something on the table here, but I can't get at it. The monk is in the way. A bewildering array of books and tomes sorted neatly on a set of shelves. Mostly books of a religious nature. They sit beneath a sheen of dust, as if no one has touched them. Yep, same as before. But I see this. A blue urn rests upon the shelf, and look at the sigil that is engraved on the urn. So what do you say we check this urn out? This urn has been glazed with a rich cobalt blue shellac, instilling with otherworldly spectral character. It has a strange sigil on its side. Well, what if we try to use it? Well, good job. While fumbling around, the urn slips from Anthony's stiff fingers, dashing itself into the fragments as it hits the floor. Anthony has picked up a broken blue urn. But Anthony found a magical rune in there. Runes are the key elements in creating spells. By collecting and combining runes in different ways, different spells can be created. Spells are magical incantations that enhance a character's natural abilities. Okay, so the spell list. The spell list is an inventory of all the spells, all the spell information that has been acquired. It will allow the player to select which spells to cast, examine, or assign to convenient quick spell buttons. New spell. Selecting this will allow the player to experiment with rune combinations and discover new spells. Runes. This selection is an inventory of all the components of magical spells you have acquired. Quick spell. With this function, the player can review their current assignment of spells to the quick spell buttons. Now, unfortunately, there's not a lot we can do because we haven't learned any spells yet. We do not have enough components to research a spell. We only have one rune and we don't know what it is yet. But what I should do is save. Now, since we're in the middle of Anthony's chapter, only Anthony's picture appears in the little window down there. Now, does Anthony have any equipment yet? He's got the message scroll. Message scrolls like this were often used to transfer messages securely. This one has a strange diagram on it consisting of a pentagonal shape with strange letters at each corner. When Anthony opened the scroll, something strange happened. That something had been intended for the Emperor Charlemagne. Suspecting a plot against the Emperor, Anthony pledged that he would warn Charlemagne at all costs. Alright. Let's go open up this coffin and take a look at what really happened. A funeral casket made from unfinished wood. It is not properly sealed and can probably be opened. Well, let's open it up.
Oh my god, what is it?
What happened? This devil's work. We should get out of here.
Yeah, so this guy didn't fall from a tower.
Most. This poor man has been the victim of great evil. Look how his body has been defiled, as if something has burst out from inside him. Here, take this for your protection. And find the bishop. He must be informed of this horrible discovery.
Alright. Anthony has acquired a Scaramacix. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. But that is his sword. This Frank and Saxon weapon relies on a hefty blade to deliver deadly cutting and slashing attacks. It does not have a handguard, as it was designed for offensive rather than offensive fighting. Alright, so he has his first weapon. Some characters will only have a single weapon for their chapter, but most of them will have multiples. Usually at least one melee weapon. Uh-oh. Something's happening to him. Yeah, he doesn't look so good. The curse that was on that scroll is starting to have an effect on him. But like I said, characters will often have at least one melee weapon and at least one ranged weapon. Some characters will have multiple of one, the other, or even both. A mysterious gold medallion rests upon the desk. Anthony has acquired a Circle of Power. Circles of Power describe the amount of power that a spell will have. The more points within that circle, the stronger the spell will be. So we only have a 3-point Circle of Power, which means we can only cast spells with 3 different runes. Over the course of the game, we will get additional Circles of Power that have more points on them, and we'll be able to use more runes inside of them as a result. Amongst the tomes and manuscripts, a book brings attention to itself. Oddly pristine on the dusty shelf, it doesn't quite belong. Should Anthony move the book? Yes, he should. There is a secret passage behind the other bookcase. Alright, so we're about to fight Xel'lotath zombie. But this Xel'lotath zombie, you can see there's a rune inside its torso. Over the course of the game, we'll fight several enemies like this. Killing them means we will get the rune inside their body. We got a magical rune. Oftentimes, if an enemy has a magical rune inside its body, that magical rune is providing power to something in the stage. And by destroying that enemy and claiming the rune, we take away power from whatever that is. Alright, well there's a monk here. Press the wrong button. There's a monk here. It needs help. That monk just gave us 2 clues. One is that some of these enemies are susceptible to fire. And the other is that some objects can be burnt. So let's pick up the torch. And let's look at the torch. The torch, or brand, is a common source of illumination from ancient times. The torch can be used to light Anthony's way or set fire to enemies. So when we equip it, he lights it up. And he can see in the dark. And he can see these things on the floor. They're broken pieces of a green urn. Alright, mix. This function allows the player to combine 2 or more items from the inventory into one. So for example, these 2 broken pieces can be mixed together, and they become 2/3 of a broken urn. And now we have the last third. Alright, so we've assembled the broken urn. We haven't fixed the broken urn. Grateful for his life, the monk tells Anthony what happened. He was carrying a sacred urn from the baptismal font, where he was confronted by the bishop, who was brandishing a large blade, and whose eyes burned with an evil fire. Frightened, the monk dropped the urn, out of shock, and ran. Returning to retrieve the urn, he found only the sword the bishop had left behind. With thanks, he gives the bishop's sword to Anthony. So we just got a two-edged sword. Now we got that because we were able to save him in time. If we were not able to save him in time, we would miss out. A heavy single-handed sword with two cutting edges is commonly known as a bastard sword or a hand-and-a-half sword for the length of the hilt, which can fit into one hand with the other for support. Now that's an even stronger sword than what we had. And there's another zombie. And that one has a rune in it too. A carved stone tablet lies on the stone floor. Anthony has required a magical codex. Codex. Runes cannot be understood without a codex. Without a codex, runes in your possession will remain a mystery. So if we look at our runes, we still don't know what this rune or this rune are. But we know that this rune is the Magamore rune, which is a rune for items. We don't have the rune yet, we just have the codex. But we're going to set you on fire. And now we have the Magamore rune. The walls are bleeding again. So we have 3 runes here. We can try making a new spell with them. Now we only have a 3 power point spell. All spells have to be aligned to one of the 3 ancients. So right now we only have the 1, so we have to pick that one. We have the Magamore rune, which we know is item. And then we have this rune. We have no clue what it is yet. But these 3 runes do create a spell. We just know it as spell 1. If we look at our spell list, it's here. The effects of this spell are unknown. Not all of its components are in your possession or have been identified. Now, I think we can still assign it, and I happen to know what the spell is. But we can cast it from here. Once again, we pick a 3-point, we select our alignment, and now we're going to select an item to cast it on. Well, let's cast it on the blue urn. The item has been repaired. So we just discovered a spell that will fix items. The magic meter. This meter represents a character's magical energy. When a spell is cast, the level will get lower. This meter regenerates whenever the character is in motion. So now we have our 3rd meter, our magic meter. That meter goes down as we cast spells, but will slowly go up as our character walks around. So if we get into a tight spot, we could just wander off and let our magic recharge for a bit. Now I've set that spell to our quick slot of Y, so when I hit the Y button, we will automatically cast that spell. We know that it repairs items, so let's cast it on the broken green urn. Now let's cast it on the broken green urn. Now the other rune is repaired. But what happens if we cast it on, say, an item that isn't broken? Well, the item is now enchanted, and we're automatically equipped with it. Our 2-edged sword here is now enchanted with the magical power of Oublié. Oublié is, of course, the ancient that is tied to magical energy. So using this sword against other Oublié enemies, not as effective. Using it against Xel'lotath enemies, less effective than if we had not enchanted it. But using it against Chattur'gha enemies, it is more effective. And the curse is still affecting Anthony, and he is just wasting away. Yep, now there's a Mantorok zombie fighting with a Xel'lotath zombie. Mantorok zombies are neither strong or weak against the other zombies. A red urn sits beside the fountain. And we have a filled red urn. This urn has been glazed a deep red shellac, giving it the sheen of a bloody heart recently torn from its host's body. It has a strange sigil on it, and it is filled with foul-smelling fluid. Well, we didn't look at the green one yet, did we? This urn has been glazed with an iridescent green shellac, making it shine with a disturbingly alien light. It has a strange sigil on its sides. While all those urns are full, a disturbing rendition of a monstrous devil, it is contorted into what appears to be a fountain, with sickly liquid that is draining into the pool, tickling from a scum-encrusted spout. So what we're going to do is we're going to fill up the other urns. Dunking the urn into the foul-smelling fountain, it becomes filled to the brim with a rank fluid. It is a lot heavier now, and rife with fetor. We're going to do that with the other urn as well. And sitting right here is another codex just waiting for us. This is the magical codex for Oublié. So now we know what this rune is, although we could assume that it was Oublié just from the blue magic. An aged tapestry hangs on the wall. It is soiled from dank atmosphere of the room and the corruption about it. But we saw earlier that these tapestries could be burnt. Alright. And there's another Mantorok zombie, and you guys burn. You guys burn nice and easy. I think they're some of the few enemies that actually do burn nice and easy. And there's a monk limping his way down that passageway. Now I see a couple of goodies. I see a codex. This is the Anterbach Codex. Yep, the Anterbach, and that relates to projecting. Religious texts of an unspeakable nature, written in languages utterable only by monsters or corrupt humans. Same as the other side. So we see a scroll right here. Amongst the books on the table rests an ancient scroll of what appears to be paper. Anthony has acquired the enchant item spell scroll. Alright, cast. This allows the player to cast spells that have been found or researched. Assign. Selecting this allows the player to assign their most used spells to a button. This will enable the casting of spells without having to choose them from the book each time. Check. Through this function, the player can examine the contents of each spell scroll that has been acquired. To examine the spell scroll, press A. A torn scroll illustrated with a geometric symbol that is accompanied by a small note. The small note reads, "That which is broken shall be fixed. That which is dull will be sharp. Thus is the nature of the enchant item magic." The spell requires the Anterbor and Magnamor runes. Press A to assign the button. So we've already assigned it to Y. We're going to do that again. Spells can be cast directly from the book or assigned to one of the 5 quick spell slots. So which is up, down, left, and right on the directional pad, or the Y button. Pressing one of the quick spell buttons illustrated will assign the spell to that button, allowing the casting of spells without retracing these steps. Select the button to assign the quick spell to. Well, we're going to keep it to Y. So a scroll is required to know the magical formulae to cast a spell. Although you can find spells through trial and error, you won't know what the spell's name is, and possibly not what it does, without finding the scroll that corresponds with it. And during the course of the game, we may find scrolls before we find the runes, or we may even be able to cast the spells before we find the appropriate scroll. Covered with arcane artifacts and texts, this table reflects the unholy presence within the church, a seething pit of iniquity. A seething pit of iniquity. Why can't I pronounce that right? And evil. Oh. So stepping on that opens the passageway. Alright, let's go. And it closes. Alright, what if we run? I mean, that monk didn't look like he was running. Not fast enough. But what if we had a way to kind of weigh it down? An iron plate in the floor is carved with 3 curious circles. Dried splashes have marred its pock-marked and worn surface. Well, we have these urns. Although the urn appears to sit correctly in place on the pressure plate, it does not appear to be heavy enough to depress it. Okay, 2 is enough. How about 3?
So, you have come to return my book. Very well then. For your efforts, I promise a quick and merciful death.
Oh no, we are not going to die, and you are not getting this book. So sometimes our enemies will be things other than zombies, and they're not as easy to take apart. Get off. Now, you know what? I want to check. How do you guys deal with fire? Oh, you don't like it, do you? You can hit this guy with fire too, but it doesn't seem to bother him that much. Alright, we put him down. Anthony has acquired the bishop's key. A shrine to a god that bespeaks of an ancient evil that graced the earth before mankind walks its valleys. Yeah, let's get out of here. Yeah, we'll just finish you off. We don't need a headless corpse just writhing on the floor. And this curse is ruining Anthony. He's actually starting to walk a little stiffer for it. Oh, careful now. This is one of those hallways I was talking about. We try swinging left or right, the wall interferes. But an overhand swing, well, that's no problem. Oh, what? His head just came off. That curse is no good. Now his arm? Jesus, poor guy. And now both his arms. How are you going to open the door? And there goes his torso. Great, he's dead. Nope, he's fine. Well, fine, relatively speaking. That was one of several insanity effects that we will find. Oh, what do we have here? Is that a cute little face hugger? Come to say hello? No, that is a special enemy called a trapper. And the trapper sent us to the trapper dimension. The trapper dimension sprawls in every direction. Whilst in this place magic cannot be cast, and humans are subjected to odd phenomena. The portal cycles from color to color as time progresses, and only the quick will escape. Alright, so we got this portal here in front of us that keeps changing color. Now, of course, the colors correspond with the four ancients being Chattur'gha, Oublié, Xel'lotath, and Mantorok. Depending on the color of the portal, will be where we get teleported. So right now it's red. We will get teleported to the other red circle. So, there is an advantage to this. If we get teleported to a certain color, there's a fount over here that corresponds with that color. So this is a Chattur'gha font. Standing on this fount will restore our physical health. If I jumped into the green one and went to the green fount, it would restore our sanity. The blue one would of course restore our magic. It might be a little hard to make out, but there's actually a zombie over there by the blue fount. Blue fount, rather. The trapper dimension will slowly over time get populated by more enemies. This will change from chapter to chapter, but this will also be affected later in the game when we get the ability to send enemies to the trapper dimension. Now the purple one, corresponding with Mantorok, leads us to the exit. So from this point on in the game, trappers will appear. Trappers have no eyes, but can sense sound very well. If Anthony can't sneak past them, they won't be trouble. So walking around very slowly is a good way to get past them. Running, on the other hand, will get their attention. They are... oh. Okay. Anthony? Anthony, why are you walking on the ceiling? Anthony, that's just silly.
This isn't really happening!
Oh, and you're back. Yeah, I hear all that screaming too. It's not very pleasant. Okay, I'm going to kill a few of these enemies to get some of our sanity back. Doesn't restore a lot. But I don't want us to get to the point where we start taking damage from having such a low sanity. There's the monk again. This curse seems like it's slowly kind of rotting away Anthony's body. Alright, and it's kind of a boss fight time. Alright. I say it's kind of a boss just because it's a tough enemy for the time. But that's actually an enemy that we'll be dealing with for a while. That is a... yeah, I had to double check the name. That is a Xel'lotath horror. These enemies are, well, they're physically strong and they can cast magic. And what's more is that they have 3 heads. So we have to destroy all 3 heads before the body would eventually die. And that thing put up a magical barrier. If I didn't kill it, we'd be stuck up here with it. Oh, more of you. Alright, quick, let's tell Charlemagne what's going on.
Trying to save him, Anthony. His fate was decided many centuries ago, as is the fate of this world. Despite your faith, there is little to save you from the power of Xel'lotath.
Even that cutscene will change depending on the ancient that you have aligned with. And that's the end of Anthony's chapter.
Trying to save him, Anthony. His fate was decided many centuries ago, as is the fate of this world. Despite your faith, there is little to save you from the power of Chattur'gha. Trying to save him, Anthony. His fate was decided many centuries ago, as is the fate of this world. Despite your faith, there is little to save you from the power of Oublié.